You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.
Welcome back. BMEA, Lifting Our Voices, a BMEA podcast. Chris, Mike, how we doing?
Good, brother. How you doing, Jerry?
Real good. Chris, you all right?
I'm good. Jerry, you got like a new camera. You looking real HD-ish.
You got a new background.
We're doing some work in the house. Had to switch up it's temporary. We'll be back in Nike behind me in a little bit.
Okay.
So everybody been all right? We've been 2 weeks. I guess it's every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Black History Month. Every day counts. So I just want to make sure we say that first. Any new news, Chris, Mike?
Well, I know we had Mike's birthday was it yesterday, Mike, or the day before?
Big news.
2 days ago, the 16th. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Happy belated birthday, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, my son bought me the Kobe Bryant Mamba Mentality book for my birthday. So
I got that right. I ain't gonna pull it. I got it right now.
I got it downstairs too.
Yeah.
Have you got into it yet?
He knew it. Yeah.
You read it, Mike? You read a little bit?
Yeah, no, I just got it.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Mike, so I'm assuming last year's birthday you were celebrating for real.
Yeah, I was in Los Angeles last year, and it was actually like almost marked the beginning of this COVID year that we've had. So it's definitely been something. It's been something.
So this is your first pandemic birthday. I had mine March 20th last year, so I was like fresh. Pandemic birthday, so I'll be spending another one in there, but it's all good. Happy birthday, Chris. Any new news?
Let me see. What's new with me, man? Nothing too much. I had some time off from work recently. Had a little vacation, so got to relax. I thought that was good. But besides that, man, nothing really new to report.
Yeah. I mean, I was on the phone with my mom. I just say the same. Nothing, same old. Really, in the pandemic, it's the same. So, but something that's new for us, as you all can see, Curtis is not with us tonight, but we do have a fill-in, and so at some point tonight we'll be joined by Brian Ferguson-Bey, a BMEA Fellow, and he'll join us. And Mike, you want to talk a little bit about that fellowship before he comes on, or you want to?
Well, yeah, just like we had former fellow Nick Simonet, Brian's just another one of the brothers from one of our first fellowships. Always been a supporter from the very beginning, and really, one of those guys who are really special in the school district. Like, anywhere he goes, any school he goes to, he's definitely there for the kids and there for the uplift of the Black community. So it's a really special guy to have.
Cool. So, well then, without any further ado, let's bring him in. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How's everybody doing, brothers?
Good.
Good, man. Glad to have you here, Brian. It's like when I think of educators in Detroit who doing the work, I see you pretty much affiliate with every organization that's doing something. You a supporter and you're involved. So you've definitely been rocking with BMEA since the beginning. So we appreciate having you on the episode. I already knew you was gonna be on here at some point, so I'm glad we're making it happen tonight.
Oh man, my pleasure, man. Yeah, man. We gotta be in those spaces and support one another, man. I think that is very important. And when we get to the conversation later on down the road in the podcast, we'll definitely have that discussion about the movie that we are going to discuss.
Brian, you want to just introduce yourself? I know Mike said some glowing words about you. Chris said some glowing words, but put them in your own words. Who are you?
My name is Brian Ferguson-Bey. I'm a homegrown educator, from Detroit. I've been in the education game, I think, like 14 years. Just all about community and uplifting my people, just like the brother said in the movie, I get high off the people. So that's a beautiful thing, man. I love it.
So before we are going to talk about Judas and the Black Messiah, but for those of you who don't know, Chris he's a tennis guy. He's a little bit of a tennis, and there was a big tennis match last night. Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about? I didn't get a chance to see it. I saw the stuff this morning, but tell us a little bit about Naomi and Serena.
Yeah, that was another great pairing. Naomi Osaka versus Serena Williams. Osaka won in straight sets. And, I guess I am a tennis guy. I was up to 3 a.m. the other night watching.
You're a tennis guy. You're up until 3 a.m.
But I had work to do too, so it just all worked together.
Yeah.
Serena won, but unfortunately, she came up short yesterday. Once again, she's now 1-3 versus Osaka in head-to-head matches. So, we were rooting for Serena, but we're big Osaka fans as well, and she's the future of the sport.
All right, so I saw a shirt the other day. I think Serena's husband was wearing it. It said "greatest woman athlete," but it had "woman" crossed out, just "greatest athlete." And so I guess I'm curious for each of us, who is your greatest athlete? And then, we'll really jump into the meat of the show. But before we get there, who's your greatest athlete ever personally? And it's not really up for an argument. You're just saying it who it is. Because if we could do this all night, but I'm not going first. So somebody else got to go first.
This answer may change tomorrow, how it is. But I'm going to go with Tiger Woods. I love that response. I'm going to go with Tiger Woods. I'm a golf guy too. Dominance that we haven't seen. I know somebody going to say MJ, but I'm just going to leave it at that. We're not going to get into the debate. I'm going to go with Tiger.
Okay. Mike, Brian, anybody?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
I'll go ahead,
Brian.
I'll go ahead and jump in there. I think the greatest athlete, if we're just going on pure athleticism, but I think when we say athlete, it also transcends athleticism.
Yeah.
And things that they do in the community. So I got to go with Muhammad Ali, the things that he endured and what he stood for and his connection to the people. Sometimes we just don't see that from our athletes that we, love to praise and things of that nature. So I'm going to go with Muhammad Ali, based off of his athleticism, his championships and, the things that he did outside of the ring.
Nice.
I'm ready, Mike. Are you ready? You still thinking, Mike?
No, it's not. I've never claimed the greatest athlete of all time because I'm a very, very much a statistics and analytics guy, and it's just hard to cross-reference, to compare someone of different sports, individual sports versus team sports. We can be here all day with that because I'm very much a sports nerd. The answer I like the most is Muhammad Ali, and Tiger's a good answer too. Serena's a really good answer, but if I had to settle with one, Muhammad Ali. Now, in my opinion, I think one of the most winningest goes to me was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he won at every level and did it at a high rate, and he had the points total all time in the NBA. So just a guy being that size and being that athletic and then being a winner at every stop of the way to me means a lot. So just to go different, just so we have a different mix, I'd say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay. I'm going to say LeBron James. I'm going to say that and a lot of the reasons that Brian mentioned, off the court, obviously he is who he is on the court. But if you ask me who I'm going to use for a clutch shot under 30 seconds, under 10 seconds, it's not going to be LeBron James. But that doesn't mean he's not the greatest athlete of all time. Okay. Yeah, but I'm going to leave it there because I know how this conversation goes. So that is it.
I wouldn't argue against it, though. A guy his size being able to do what he's done speaks to, how great of an athlete he is, and how long he's done it for. Right. Being his age and getting better. It's unnatural.
So I appreciate that conversation. I'm sure maybe one day we'll just do an exclusive BMEA podcast, the greatest athlete ever, and then bring all kinds of folks into the conversation. All right. Now, Brian, I know I can tell you're excited for this next topic that we're about to talk about. It is Black History Month. A couple years ago, we had Black Panther out to celebrate Chadwick and that whole cast. And this year it kind of feels similar to that with Judas and the Black Messiah, with Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield and all of those guys and that cast. Have you all had a chance to see that movie?
I haven't seen it yet.
Mike?
Yeah. I actually got to see it on my birthday. So, yeah, really dope.
Brian,
I saw it.
So, Brian, I'm curious, like, just for, and Chris, we're not going to ruin it for you because you could go read it on the internet or a textbook if you want to. But I'm just curious, instant reactions. I had a pretty instant reaction right after it was over. I'm curious if you all did too, and if so, what was it?
I mean, the story to me was it's important for people to know. One, I think that Fred Hampton is a Black cultural icon in the same realm of in a similar realm of like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Huey P. Newton and things. So Fred Hampton should be spoken of because it's important. His idea is important. The revolutionary is important. The movie to me was well shot, directed. Shaka King and Ryan Coogler did their thing. It was interesting going from a direction of the informant, but I think and some people didn't like that, but I think that is important to also highlight when we think about how the system affects our movements. Right? It's always from within. It's always from some sort of sneaky, manipulative way. So sad ending, which we knew was going to happen, but I definitely enjoyed the movie and enjoyed the message.
Brian.
Yeah, definitely. Everything that Mike said, when we're talking about the whole premise of the movie, it was shot well and directed well. And when we think about how we are infiltrated, COINTELPRO, it gave a prime example of how our movements have been halted, and kind of leads us into this day and time and era is like why we don't have any strong movements out there, because of that particular program that had been put in place. So when we're thinking about it, it definitely struck a nerve of relevance to our situation in this day, time, and era. From me watching the movie, at least.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to see it with some students, and that last scene where they go into the bedroom and shoot him. The kids had some choice words in that moment, and more not in like not in just like a cuss, not just a cuss kind of way, but as like they could feel that the gravity of that moment. And after the movie, talking to a couple of them and seniors, and Fred Hampton only 3 years older than you, and I don't think like you hear he's 21, but you don't necessarily put it together until you're in that moment, and you could see they're like, oh, and you right, and so for me, it's something about Fred Hampton, and this is before the movie, and you just could tell he figured it out, but you could also tell that the government knew that he knew. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to be so young and to have it all kind of sorted out and a plan of action and to execute it, obviously that scared the government, but it was so powerful. And so I am curious, and Chris, obviously speak up if you would like to. It's like, what does the legacy of Fred Hampton, like what is his legacy to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in for a second. I think the idea of that, you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. I think like that's a very powerful yet simple message that we need to, I guess, just make sure we're embodying, because like a spirit does, kind of like a spirit doesn't die. If that makes sense. And I was connecting it back to the work that we're doing, even like in this organization, because I feel that, we operate in professional settings, but also like we're connected to a larger purpose behind what we're doing. Ultimately, we want to, change educational outcomes for our students, and we believe that, a way through that is helping increase the number of Black male educators. And I think that we have to, I guess, keep that spirit alive in the different things that we do, even as we change roles, change schools, different systems, like we can't allow the systems in which we individually operate in stop the revolution from occurring for all students, if that makes sense. So that's something that kind of stuck out to me as I was just kind of preparing for the show and just reflecting and watching some different speeches by Fred Hampton that kind of stood out to me.
what his legacy to me, and I think the most important part is that when you think about how young he was, the idea is so simple. Like together we can overcome, right? If we're together and if we because there's power wherever there's people, right? So I think that message, continues. And I was telling kids earlier today, talking to them about Judas and the Black Messiah, is that the revolution just evolves. It never dies down. Like you got from the abolitionists when they freed us. I mean, even beyond that, the brothers who fought back, the revolts from the slave revolts to the abolitionists to Reconstruction era to fighting Jim Crow, civil rights to the Black Panthers, it can to even Black Lives Matter movement. It continues to evolve because like you said, the revolution doesn't die. But it's important for our kids to know that they are always the energy, the catalyst, the engine of the revolution. Like so, our kids in high school now, making sure that they know they have a voice, and that their voice is important because they are the change.
For me, and then Brian, I'll
like Chris said.
Brian. Go ahead.
Okay, my bad. Like Chris said, when we talk about teaching as an act of a revolution, I think that's important. My brother Quan Ellums always says that because we are in a position to bring about that change and institute values and morals while bringing tons of information to the classroom. So it's definitely a revolutionary act that we portray as teachers and educators as we move forward. And Fred Hampton, he did a lot of great things, just like Mike said, at a young age, where he was able to galvanize, people from different backgrounds, and that was the fear that he was able to unite all these people into a united front. In his charismatic way, the way that he spoke and the way that he instituted fear, what they say, the pen is mightier, or in his case, the mouth was mightier than a sword. His actions were able to be carried forth.
Yeah, and just to close this out, for me, I just obviously the youth part speaks, but just how much he just cared about the work and not a whole lot else. He just seemed so focused on the work and not for his own notoriety, but for the work itself and for the people. And so for me, that always stood out to me in a way that it didn't always stand out to me with Malcolm X and MLK, and not because they were looking for the limelight, but it's just something about, and maybe just because he was so young and only on the scene for so long, but it just looked like he was really there truly to do that work and the type of work that he was doing. So that'll always be his legacy to us. And so to transition, we talk about teaching as a revolutionary act. Obviously, it's been a virtual revolutionary act this school year, and now that conversation is starting to turn. Biden was on CNN. He had his first town hall talking about the return to school, and I know that we have a clip. So, Chris, whenever you're ready.
Yep. And just so we're clear, I'm gonna play two segments of a clip. One is part of what Biden said during the town hall about reopening. And then the second clip is just kind of show this summary of like the divide, how people have mixed feelings about returning, and then we'll jump into the conversation. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna play the clips now.
What is the plan and recommendation to get students back into the brick and mortar buildings? As a parent of 4 children, I find it imperative that they get back to school as safely as possible.
There are certain things that make it rational and easy to go back to the brick and mortar building. One, first of all, making sure everybody is wearing protective gear. Secondly, organizing in smaller pods, which means that's why we need more teachers. We also have indicated that it is much better, it's much easier to send kids K through 8 back because they are less likely to communicate the disease to somebody else.
While there are numerous warnings not to be in large groups or to have dinner parties or small parties, why is it okay to put students and teachers in close proximity to each other for an entire day, day after day?
It's about needing to be able to socially distance, smaller classes, more protection, and I think that teachers and the folks who work in the school, the cafeteria workers and others, should be on the list of preferred to get a vaccination.
For folks who are...
All right, now I'm going to pause the clip there, and I'm going to play the second clip, and then we're going to be back to discuss.
Okay.
The growing question this morning, what will come first, vaccinations for teachers or in-person learning? Some finding messaging from the Biden administration confusing after Vice President Harris spoke exclusively with Savannah on Wednesday.
So first of all, let me just say this, and the president has said it, and we're all really clear, teachers should be a priority.
But if they're not vaccinated, is it safe for them?
Well, I think that we have to decide if we can put in place safe measures.
Dr. Fauci clarified the administration's position.
We don't feel that every teacher needs to be vaccinated before you can open a school. That doesn't take away from the fact that we strongly support the vaccination of teachers.
While 28 states have made all or some teachers eligible for a vaccine, the strained supply is causing delays, and the reluctance to require shots before reopening is upsetting many teachers.
They should say we need to be vaccinated in order to return to work. We're not just sitting at home because somebody just said, oh, we got to close the schools. We're sitting at home because of life and death.
Across the country, districts are divided. In Los Angeles, despite pushback from teachers' unions, elementary schools can reopen this week.
It's a real lifeline for our students to think that they can return to school, be reunited with their classmates, and for some of them, it'll be meeting the teacher in person for the first time.
Safe return, no return.
But after protests from teachers in Philadelphia, a classroom comeback for students has been delayed for a third time.
No one should be asked to return to school unless the proper precautions are in place.
Still, many parents whose kids have been learning virtually for almost a year now say it's past time to get back to school.
Put children first in this conversation. Teachers are obviously important parts of our communities, but how do we balance this correctly so that our children are not left behind in this pandemic?
So I am curious, every week, this is a conversation. And so what's this week's version of the same conversation? But Brian, we haven't heard your opinion yet. What do you think about kids returning to school, especially within our context?
I'm really kind of like up in the air about it, man. The reason why I say that is because we want kids in school because we know that the quote unquote gap is getting further and further apart, in regards to kids really receiving the information that they need and us being able to tie that information into a way that they can really digest it. We know that gap is happening by them being at home, but at the same time, we want to make sure that everything is safe, especially by COVID rates hitting the inner cities and, our population that has impacted us the most. So we want to make sure that everything is safe before we walk into the building and put ourselves at risk, So I'm kind of up and up, 50-50 on it,
So as somebody who represents, school culture, I think, I want kids to be back in the building just because, especially in a high school space, the idea of being away for the entire year has like major ramifications on a 4-year setting, right? But as much as I want us to back in school, I have a hard time listening to folks say go back to school without at least offering the vaccination to folks. And I know that's happening in other states, not so much here in Michigan, but I have a hard time with that. And I would support anybody saying no thanks if they're not even being offered a vaccine.
Yeah, and that's a good point you make. I think I want kids back in schools. Like Brian, I think I'm a little unsure on what's the safest way or how do you ensure that. But one thing that frustrates me, based off what I heard, President Biden just say in that clip is, it was I don't know if you heard of one thing he said was, hey, we need smaller class sizes and we need more teachers. And it's like,
it was like he clearly doesn't know what's going on.
We just pick them teachers off the tree or the street, and then we have that's a big issue. And I think once again, I think this pandemic just shows a lot of the inequities in education, a lot of how this country just hasn't made it a true priority. And once again, how I feel like kids from, you know, our communities are going to get the shorter end of the stick in a way because, listen, some, you know, like my kids' schools, especially my son's schools, has really large class sizes. So, and, you know, not open buildings. So how they're supposed to go in a, you know, K-5 space to be 5 days a week with smaller sizes and more teachers within your first 100 days of office. So it's like, I feel like it's a lot of lip service, like people just saying things. Yeah. But if you talk to any real educator or administrator, you know it's not that simple. And I think a lot of that gets lost in the cycle of media, in which now you have like this, almost this divide between parents and educators in some cases, because I think people are oversimplifying what it would take to have truly safe schools. You know what I'm saying?
So let me just clarify one thing really quick before we get to you, Mike. President Biden, if you are interested in finding more teachers, cut the check and we'll be happy to help. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I mean, it's just everyone seems out of touch. So like everyone is out of touch. They don't seem out of touch. They've been that way.
It's been a long pandemic.
I do believe students benefit from being in the building, being together, being there. That is true. I don't like them saying open schools back up because it insinuates that school hasn't been open and that we haven't been teaching and kids haven't been learning or shouldn't be learning and that people aren't working. And so a lot of it sounds like frustration of like, hey, get our kids out, get my kid out the house, get him back in the building so I can move on. And it isn't about, you know, the safety of actual teachers. And it isn't about like, oh yeah, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that the schools are safe. They're saying like, hey, you know, time to go back. That's all they're saying. Time to go back. They're not saying like, you know what, we'll hire more. We're going to spend this much money hiring more teachers. We're going to do this, put this stuff in buildings. Like nothing. Y'all don't need the vaccine either.
Just throw some masks on.
You know what I'm saying? The schools in the South never even closed down in the beginning when it first happened, and they just were losing teachers. People were just dying. You know, just dying. And we move on. And it's like teachers don't have to be no casualty of no war on just not wanting to take care of nobody. You know what I'm saying? And all of this ties back to the government not doing what they were supposed to do, right? They ain't sent us that money when they should have sent the money for people to stay home, right? People to work from home, right? People to just sit down for long enough for the virus to go away. Because they didn't do that, now we got to deal with all this other stuff. And now y'all just ready to go back to school, which I really despise that word because we've been in school. And what the virus exposed was all not only the inequities, but all what was wrong with what was teaching in school in the first place. These teachers want to go back to worksheets. These teachers want to go back to having this control over the kids. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't do this. You got to wake up. You got to stand up. They just want to go back to the control. Now, there are some kids who are overwhelmed, and this is not conducive for learning. I get all that. That also speaks to just the inequities and the ineffectiveness of the teaching and learning going on in the first place. But to me, it all is like, I have no problem going back for the kids. But it isn't about me. It's about people who are susceptible to disease. It's about people who are putting their life on the line. It's about the kids who are susceptible to disease. Like it isn't like kids aren't getting sick, right? It isn't like people aren't dying like that. I think it's insensitive the way people are going about it. Long story short,
I think there's a lot of teachers that would agree with you, Mike. You might want to go negotiate for some unions with that. So, we'll continue to monitor the reopening situation. I think, that's something that's going to go like this every week. It'll be something new about reopening. And so we'll just have to see. What I do know is that in Utah, I'm assuming their schools are open in Utah. And one of the things they're not doing in Utah, or I guess giving you an option, is to opt out of Black History Month at this particular school in Utah. And, I've never been in a school where that was even a consideration. And so I am curious to just, when you saw it, are you familiar with that story?
I have a clip of it too.
Okay, show the clip, Chris, please.
you.
Parents at Maria Montessori Academy in North Ogden were sent an email informing them that they would have the option to opt their child out of Black History Month lessons and events that were planned throughout the month of February. Now they're telling us the school is rescinding that offer.
I'm not exactly sure why anyone thought that they had to send out a document saying, I don't want my child to participate in this activity. That's what the document says.
Jamie's daughter has been a student at Maria Montessori Academy for 7 years.
And this is the first year that anything has ever been discussed about Black History Month.
Lex Scott, founder of Black Lives Matter Utah, says the decision to allow parents to opt out is appalling.
You can't opt out of Black history. Black history is American history.
In an email sent to parents, the school's director, Micah Hirakawa, says he is deeply saddened and disappointed that parents would opt their children out of Black History Month curriculum, and added that as an Asian American whose great-grandparents were thrown into internment camps, he values teaching students about the, quote, mistreatment, challenges, and obstacles that people of color in our nation have had to endure.
It's just heartbreaking that anyone who runs a school would believe that it is okay in any way, that it is acceptable in any way to try to ban talking about Black history.
Hirakawa was hired to replace the school's former director in April of 2020. Jamie says she believes he has made a genuine effort to include Black History Month lessons as part of the school's curriculum.
I just knew that he was as surprised as I was that probably a lot of families sent in the paperwork to not participate.
Lex says the ability for parents to opt out shouldn't have been an option in the first place.
He needs to learn from this. He needs to apologize and make sure that every child in that school learns about Black history.
Utah law does allow parents to opt their children out of portions of curriculum based on religious beliefs or right of conscience. But a representative with the State Board of Education clarified with Fox 13 that, quote, no student can be waived from state social studies standards, which include a focus on U.S. history, inequality, and race relations. Once again, Jamie Tracy tells me that within the last few hours, the school has sent out an email apologizing for the original opt-out option and has rescinded that offer. And the school's director declined our request for an interview. In Salt Lake City, Diego Romo, Fox 13 News, Utah.
What year is it?
You already knew Utah wasn't getting no Black history anyway.
It seemed like he tried to bring it, but then said, it's optional.
That's how you know they wasn't teaching it. Like they trying something new. What?
Yeah.
So the principal made the decision. The guy above the principal he had an issue with it. Is that how I understood that?
Well, I was hearing the word director. I'm not exactly sure. I take it as the director and principal. I thought they were like the same person.
Yeah.
Maybe they just called him a director. But yeah.
Can you opt out of anything else? I
had that thought, Mike. I had that thought. Like, what else can you opt out of? But I think we know the answer. Guys, go ahead, Chris, please.
I think it just raises a lot of questions. And you may, listening, you may think, well, why this is in Utah? Why are we talking about it here? But I think I'm going to assume that there was maybe some parents or someone raised a concern, right? And this principal or director called himself trying to appease these parents. But what's really troubling for me is that he would make that attempt. And I find that troubling, but also that you have families that would take offense in any way to having their kids learn about Black history, in a school setting where you're learning history. Like you can't ignore that from U.S. history or world history. So I think it just is a reminder of some of the deep-seated or not so deep-seated feelings that people walk around having about Black people in this country.
I'm listening to you talk, Chris, and I was starting to crystallize for me. Because here's the thing. There's a bunch of schools in this country that probably don't celebrate Black History Month. They just don't say anything, right? Like they just don't. They just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just go about their day, right? But it kind of reminds me of the boldness that came out of Trump's tenure, right? All of a sudden, the red hats are out there again, and so it's just like while they're trying, obviously accidental. There's some level of boldness that it takes to even put it all together to send it out into the world. So that's when I was listening to you, that's what came to me. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so just like you were saying about the boldness, I'm gonna make a bold statement. There is no history without Black history.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
So in any capacity. So whatever these people are talking about opting out of it, it's like, in my mind, ridiculous. But not too far from, I believe here though, in Michigan, we have a guy who's running for, was it congressman, who wants to promote that same type of ideology, right?
I think he want to run for governor, actually. A black guy.
Yeah, the governor. Yeah. So he wants to, come on, man. It's like, how can we got to stop minimizing our contributions to civilizations. We built them. And that's what it is. Other people just have to accept the fact that we did those things, and we got to continue to push the narrative to our children. Going to one of the meetings that you guys established, changing the narrative. We got to continue to promote that because that's our greatness. That's our legacy. So these people talking about opting out of Black history, man, there is no history without Black history, African history.
Well, what the real underlying issue is that America is the villain in that Black history story. You know what I'm saying? And all education is American exceptionalism in this country. It's like how great America is. World history is European history, and U.S. history is how great the white man has been. All right. But Black history is the shortest month of the year that we can try to squeeze in Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and then move on with our lives. Right. Because even the whole we can exclude you from the Black history activities and it's just celebratory. There isn't actual any learning going on. It's just hey, we want to acknowledge the fact that this month is Black History Month. But that's really what it is. It's you can't really truthfully go deep into Black history without making America look bad, and that's the problem. Or just telling the truth.
I'd be very curious to see what that U.S. history curriculum looks like at that school. Very curious.
And the world history. And the world history.
Yeah, both. So I don't know if we should have ended on that one. I was cool to talk about it, and then the video just made it so much worse, Chris. This doesn't make any sense. But anyway, it's February 18th. It's still Black History Month. They'll figure it out over there in Utah. Brian, we appreciate you being with us tonight, man. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come back.
Oh man, thank you, man. Yeah, I'll come back anytime. Like I said, we got to be in those spaces. We got to display unity amongst ourselves, and go out there and be the change and be the example. I mean, I think we're doing that on a daily basis, but it's just that much more powerful when we can put it together on this platform as well.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being here, and we will talk to you soon. Gentlemen, I feel like we missed a big moment. We didn't really reflect on a moment that we had as an organization a couple weeks ago. The quarterly, Mike.
Yeah. No, it was a great experience, man. It was so many people were hitting me up afterwards trying to get the video and trying to get some notes from Colin Seal, man. He just really broke down what's really going on in schools with our kids and what we're teaching them, and how we're really not teaching them to critically think, which is the most important tool, thinking and reasoning. And that translates into them being able to be productive and intellectually effective as adults. And he just talked about how so much of school is compliance and so much of school is following directions that kids don't actually know how to critically think. So we went through a sample of it where there was a debate over a situation, and in that situation it wasn't clear cut who was right and who was wrong. So he had us go through this whole thing of each scenario and justifying our reasoning and things like that, which are all skills that kids are doing or are supposed to be doing in schools. So it was just really dope, man. Colin Seal, he has a book out, and he's done a lot of stuff. So if you weren't able to come to the event, make sure you check him out. And I think it's just I'm glad that we're able to each of these events kind of touch on a nuance that needs to be introduced to this, what we call education, right? And when we constantly think about what does it look like to change it, right? Especially in this virtual space, we've been thinking more about it. What does it look like for school to not have grades? What does it look like for us to not teach to this content, but teach like these skills, these cognitive skills that kids need. And I think that was just a really good like piece of it. So great show.
For me, the biggest takeaway was the doing right versus being right, and that conversation he had that day, and that it's more important to do right versus just always being right. And I think that is, like you said, is a nuance that it's very important that some folks can't help but just follow the rules, even if you know that bending a rule is going to have a greater positive impact on a community, right? And so, yes, sir. So that idea of doing right versus being right, I think that was something that stuck with me. Chris, any thoughts on the quarterly?
Yeah, I thought it was just a great event. I won't, repeat what you said. We all have already said. I was really just pleased with the response. Like Mike said, a lot of people, wanting the recording and wanting to share. And that's why I think for you, the listener, make sure, we always try to bring the best content, the best training. So definitely, be on the lookout for the next event and make sure you're there, because, we can't always just send out someone's copyrighted material and their work, so you got to catch it live. We don't want you missing out. But I was really just pleased with the quality and just the response we got from the people that were there. It was a packed virtual house,
Yeah, it was. It was good.
And it was very lively in the chat and the breakout rooms. It was just great energy the whole day.
Yeah, that's what I miss in person, our events.
Yeah. But, I'll say one of the genius things about the events is it's just 2 hours, right? You can get back to your day, you get the message or whatever, and you're back to your day, right? I appreciate that, because sometimes, Saturday is 5 hours and then your whole Saturday's over. So just come with us 2 hours. We'll send you on your way. Yeah. So with that being said, I guess that's the end of tonight's episode. We are back in 2 weeks, March 4th. But in the meantime, if you haven't already, obviously subscribe to the YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We appreciate all our viewers today. We saw the comments coming across the screen, so shout out to you all. Am I missing anything, gentlemen?
That's it. And on that note, I think we can sign out.
All right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Appreciate it.
You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.